Hey, everybody, grab your things and hop back on the Shea Station train. We're happy to be back this week with another new episode brought to you by Jomboy Media. I'm one of your co-hosts, Jolly Olive, a.k.a. Jack, and joining me is Blitzball MVP and current Cy Young favorite for the Warehouse Games, my guy, Jerry Blevins. If you guys hadn't seen our Blitzball performance already, I highly recommend you go check it out on the Warehouse Games YouTube channel. But Jerry, can you talk to me a little bit about, just the adrenaline, the joy pitching out like that?
Yeah, man. It's so fun. Zero prep coming in,
Of course.
excited to be competitive again. And then we're doing our like live seeding, everybody votes for who they want. And they voted us a fifth out of eight seed.
Crazy.
And I have never felt more disrespected in my professional career as I did in that moment.
Right.
It was a thing of like pure shock. And so, that first game, I feel bad for, Mac and Bossy because they're lucky that they put on an MPH
Right.
limit because I would have diced them up.
It would have been even worse than it already was somehow. And like,
No, it was a
listen,
lot of fun, man.
you've been the underdog before. You're used to. You played for some
I'm
scrappy
used to
A's
being
teams.
valued and under, well, what's an underdog?
Yeah.
Yeah, people just try to look through me, look past me, and I love it. It makes my job easier because they focus on what's ahead. So
Yeah.
we had fun with it.
But like on the John Boy Media roster, I feel like you shouldn't be close to underdog. We're talking
That's
former
where
big
I
league
was like, oh,
pitcher.
finally, I get some respect around here. And no, so
Yeah, so I mean, if you guys hadn't seen it already, it's an absolute show that Jerry and our friend Aaron Bossy put out on the mound. We'll have another game coming up in a couple weeks, but there's plenty of great teams playing over there, so go check it out if you're a blitzball or wiffle ball or baseball fan. And you're just kind of missing the game of baseball, like we both are right now. It was nice, honestly, to have
facts.
like a little bit of like competitiveness and to like care about a team for like a couple days. It was good. It
It
was
was great,
refreshing.
man. We had fun. So our Shea Station listeners, hop on that YouTube, give us some shout outs. It's exciting stuff.
Also, if you
Um,
guys are watching on YouTube, you see the Shea Station jerseys behind me. They're apparently very popular, and you can see why. They look fresh. Ignore the Derek Jeter poster in the background. We're not going to
wow,
talk about
you
that.
should have put him in the Shea Station. You
I
might
was
have got
thinking
fired.
I couldn't
You
like
might
find a
have
way to
gotten
tape him
fired if
there.
you put the Shea Station jersey like lined up perfectly with Jeter.
I was thinking about like putting tape, but I was like, what if I peel off the tape and then like the poster comes off a little bit and then I get in trouble? It's like wasn't worth it. It's to the side. It's okay. But yeah, you can find those on the Jomboy Media store. Customize them to your own pleasure. They're really nice. They fit really well too. Good summer shirt. So if you're planning on playing blitzball. So this week on Shea Station, we actually have a decent bit of Mets things to talk about. A little bit scarce, obviously, because we're still in the lockout. But a couple interesting things. Obviously, if you're familiar with the lockout and the proceedings, you know that guys that aren't on the 40-man roster can actually still report to spring training camp. So we've actually been seeing a lot of the top Mets prospects kind of like take the spotlight a little bit, which is pretty cool. So we're going to dive into a couple guys that we just find a little bit interesting and have some things to say. But on the lockout side of things, the Mets actually have three representatives in Jupiter right now for the Players Association. That's Max Scherzer, Francisco Lindor, and Brandon Nimmo. We actually got to see Max Scherzer signed some autographs for Mets fans for the first time, which was pretty cool. But the lockout's moving at least a little bit. They're meeting every day now, which is at least better than things were before. I guess is the least we can say there.
I just want to shout out to the Mets contingent there. I love seeing it. Obviously, Scherzer's been in the league plenty, and Lindor in another team. Nimmo was a young guy that I really wanted to get involved with the union, and because he's a young, smart guy that can represent the next wave. Well, along with Conforto, who's now an old guy too. I'm happy to see him there, man. I'm happy to see the next wave of intelligent young players be able to be represented. And it's good to see that unity together. There's a lot of frustration on the player side from the lack of movement because they're ready to go. They just want some semblance of, let's go. You guys want to do this or not? And so let's just hope it gets resolved. But I love seeing them there, man. It means that they care and that they're involved. So that's great. And to see Scherzer signing autographs as a Met. Pretty dang cool.
Yeah, very cool. And I think it's also like a little bit of like a team leadership step up for Brandon Nimmo a little bit to be one of the three head guys there. Because, when you think of the Mets, you definitely think of like Lindor, Scherzer, Alonso. And it's nice that Nimmo is he's kind of in that group. But to talk about the frustrations over the lockout, we just saw Trevor May go on Chris Rowe's rotation and really just, give us a clear outlining of like how difficult this is for not only the players, but, the pitchers especially, who are supposed to be kind of ramping up now. Like how much prep are you supposed to do now? Are you supposed to go all out and get your arm to full strength? Are you supposed to take it easy? I feel like it's probably really difficult for them right now.
Yeah, that's the point. We're at the part of the off season now into spring training where this is where the intensity picks up. You're training for these moments. Now you're around your teammates, your coaching staff, your medical staff. You're able to kind of harness in, because this is when the little injuries start to happen, when you really start to ramp it up, where you're like, my lat's a little tight. And when you have the availability of a big league training staff, you can address those things earlier. Well, now you don't have that. Now guys may not have access to facilities to ramp it up. So this is when it gets frustrating from the players' point, when it's like, they'll if they don't mess around, if they keep messing around, there's going to be more anger involved because it's pointless. I don't want to dive too deep into it. The fact that there's a lockout in general where they can't go to the facility is such a power move. Yeah. And it has nothing to do with negotiations. It has nothing to do with caring about the baseball season, because you could still negotiate right now. There's no reason for them to be locked out of a facility, not having spring training, and you could still go through it. They're afraid. They want to hold on to that power position and have that in the right to negotiate. And so they did it, and they didn't do it because for love of the game. They did it because of negotiations as a tactic. And so it's sad. And this is the point where fans are getting pissed off, where players are getting pissed off even more. So hopefully they get this resolved and we can see, but this is exciting to see. As you talked about, these young prospects, this is a spotlight that these guys don't normally get. Which I'm okay with, and I'm sure they're okay with, because it's a development time. Because you're not ready. You're so young, you're so raw. These are the times to where you're around these big league guys, these big league coaches, and you can harness your gifts and hone your skills and get to that level. So it's exciting. It's new. And there's a lot of talent for the Mets to be excited about.
Yeah, man. I mean, we've talked a lot about this top-heavy farm system, and you mentioned before that some of them aren't ready. Some of them definitely believe they are, and we're going to get to that in a little bit because we saw some interesting quotes from over the weekend. But I wanted to go back for a little bit and just talk about, the particular Met-related struggle with this spring training in Buck Showalter, who is managing a new team for the first time and still has not been able to contact any of his players per, the rules of this lockout. And I hadn't really thought about it until now because, he's only really connecting with these younger guys that he's not going to see for probably a couple more years, especially the ones that are at the top of the system right now, which is why I'm kind of glad that we have a veteran Stead taking this position, not a guy that's new to the job and is learning things as they go and also has to deal with this on top of everything else. Like we go back to Luis Rojas in 2020. That was not a normal first season for a manager by any means. And this would be the exact same thing. So that Buck hire kind of just looks better and better every day, although he does have to deal with this nonsense.
Yeah, it's going to be a hurdle because he hasn't been able to talk to any of his guys.
Yeah, man.
It's an unnecessary thing that luckily you have a guy that's capable of handling anything that's come his way because he's a baseball lifer and he's got tons of experience. And it goes for the team too, because the team is full of experienced guys that can handle anything. They know how to get ready. They're going to come together as soon as they can and iron out anything that needs. There'll be some hiccups along the way as far as direction and philosophy and how they want to approach the season and where they have to focus on. But this is a new staff, a new everything. So it's frustrating to say the least, but I feel like we have everything in place to overcome.
Yeah.
So that's a positive silver lining there.
Yeah, a lot of veteran players, but a lot of new coaches. We mentioned Eric Chavez earlier in the season. The Mets also hired their first woman coach in franchise history in Gretchen
Alcoin. I think we determined it was.
I'm going to say O'Coin.
O'Coin. We're going to roll with O'Coin. Former softball player for Tennessee. She is a now player development coach with the Mets, and she's appeared in some of the photos with the prospects. So that's very, very cool. Good on the Mets for breaking some ground there. Pretty cool.
Yeah, good on Gretchen. Good on the Mets. I'd love to chat with her. I love to see it. Women belong in baseball. It's nice. I like seeing it. It's coming along. Hopefully it seems like it's steamrolling and we're starting to see some major movement. So just the more people that are allowed to come into the game and open, the better we're going to be. The talent level rises when you just have a bigger pool to pull from. So that's exciting.
Yeah. And also she was a softball pitcher. So you know that she's thrown like 200 pitches in a 9-inning game, and she's tough. She can go. She's good.
I checked it just a little bit, so that she apparently is a position player as well. So she's done a little bit of everything.
Oh, look at that.
She's probably mad the DH is coming in because she did it for herself. So,
yeah, a little bit. So that's all the circumstances of the lockout. If you guys want to hear more about the labor side of things, I definitely recommend you check out Talking Baseball. They do a labor pod every week, every Thursday. Over here, it's going to be Mets centered, and we actually have some fun things to talk about. This will be a prospect centered episode. But we won't be discussing some guys that actually haven't been able to report to camp. As we mentioned before, if you're a member of the 40-man roster, you are a member of the Players Association by default, and thus you cannot report to camp along with the other guys. So guys like, number 3 prospect Ronnie Mauricio, who we will discuss a little bit, he's not at camp right now. He's not able to train with the other guys. Mark Vientos is not there. Nick Plummer, Khalil Lee, who had some major league time last year, Jose Bodo, and Adam Oller, who actually won a minor league pitcher of the year for the Mets last year. These are all guys that are unable to train with the team right now, are missing some opportunities there, which is very unfortunate for them. But there are some pretty interesting characters here. I'm going to let it kick off to you because I know that you actually trained with some of these guys in your last stint with the Mets.
Yeah, so obviously the big name for everybody across the Metsdom is Francisco. Metsdom. Yeah, man. I mean, it's the big catcher. It's Francisco Alvarez. He's like a shining star right now, and it's wonderful to see because he is special. Yeah. But he's also a young prospect. So there's a lot of expectations being put on him. There's a lot of people anointing him at an early age. Mm-hmm. But this is where it fits for me. I think he can live up to that hype. He's got a lot of offensive skills. His numbers are incredible for a 20-year-old. And he came out, and you mentioned it at the top of the show, that he wants to be in the big leagues this year. That's his goal. I love that.
Same.
That's what you want.
Absolutely.
He is not too young for the big leagues. He's got some major steps to overcome, especially catching is so hard.
Yeah.
To be young, there's just no substitute for experience, but he's got the soft hands. He's got the wide body. He's got the demeanor and the understanding that he's young in that aspect, and he's willing to work. So he's not going to have an ego when it comes to calling a game. At least when I was throwing to him, because in spring training, first thing I do is all right, this kid looks like he's 13 years old. He's got the biggest smile on his face. And I'm judging you upon our first bullpen session. I'm judging you with your work ethic, the way you set up, if you're lazy with your hands, because I'm trying to polish my game.
Right.
And if you're being lazy back there, it's going to bother me in my development and where I'm at.
Yeah.
And so, a young kid, that's where you are, because he's never had to work, nor has he probably had a pitcher that needs him to work. And so I get to that point, I'm throwing to him. I'm like, all right, let's see it. He's sticking it back there. He's grabbing it. He's doing everything right. So impressed with him. Game calling, I shook him a lot. I shake everybody. He handled it well. He had a good head on his shoulders. He's learning. He came up to me afterward and was like, why this pitch there? Talk through it. Super excited about him as a player. His attitude of wanting to be at the big leagues. That's what you want. And it's not unrealistic to think that he could be in the big leagues this year. He's 20. Yeah. He's not 16. Look at what happened. Juan Soto, Ronald Acuna, these guys play a less premium position as far as, experience needed, but he can do it. He can be in the big leagues this year. You have some major hurdles with McCann. You got a big contract there. You need a lot out of him. You have Nito, who is perennially underappreciated and a good ball player. I love Nito. So there's already those two guys in the big leagues. It's going to take something crazy or something drastic for him to get there this year, I think. But when he does, I'd be excited for it.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about something crazy or something drastic, when Francisco Alvarez started the year in Single A last year, he batted .417 with a 1.2 OPS, which is very, very good for those who are unaware. The kid is a sensation. You know, he went from very, very low on the top 100 prospect list, sometimes unranked on other websites, to being a top 10 prospect from last year. Some have ranked him as high as number 8. That's Keith Law. But yeah, I mean, he's the second best catching prospect in baseball. I don't think anybody would argue that, behind Adley Rutschman. And the Mets are very, very blessed because we've had kind of a tough time getting a stable backstop back there. You know, we've had bits and spades of guys like Travis d'Arnaud, but it's been a while since the days of Mike Piazza. And I don't want to, put that pressure on Francisco Alvarez that everybody is putting on him right now. But when you have a quote that says, make it to the bigs, that's my goal for 2022, you warrant the hype. He's just 20 years old, but we've had guys come up at 18 and 19. It's not a completely foreign thing anymore. And when you have a kid as special as Francisco Alvarez, he's gifted with the bat. Like you said, he's gifted behind the dish. And I just kind of feel like he has a little bit of a veteran presence around him. I really liked the story you told there about how he's willing to learn from pretty much anybody. There is a situation, though, with James McCann. He's only in year 2 of a 4-year deal. Obviously, Mets fans and Mets brass were a little bit underwhelmed with that 2021 performance. There's no reason why James McCann can't bounce back next year. He's been that kind of player before. And this is a Tomas Nido appreciation pod. We love Nido here, especially what he brings behind the dish defensively. So while there isn't a clear-cut spot for Alvarez yet, he could make it for himself with the way that he absolutely crushes the ball in the minor leagues. Between Single A and Single A Plus last year, 24 home runs, a .554 slugging percentage, even swiped 8 bags. So he does a little bit of everything. I don't want to say he's a 5-tool player because, he is a catcher. There are caveats that come with that. But if you're a Mets fan and you're not excited about Francisco Alvarez in 2022, I would hop on the train. I really would.
Yeah, I would be excited. He's a heck of a prospect and a great kid. Could be a superstar. You don't want to do that to anybody and put that pressure on him. Of
course.
But here we are, man. This is New York. This is what you're going to get.
It's kind of what we do.
Can handle it.
Put pressure.
Yeah, man. You're going to feel it anyway. There's no more room in today's game for let's let a guy develop under the spotlight. If you're a big star, there's too much. Too many people have the capability of talking about you and getting their word out. There's no more secrets. So you're either going to develop or you're not. I would be excited. I am excited for him to see him in the near future at some point in the big leagues. Knock on wood, barring injury or setback. So. Yep.
And I get the aspiration, man, because it's go time in Queens a little bit. Like let's win now. And I think, if you're a young guy and you're the top prospect, you want to be a part of that. They always put that kind of expected year date, but sometimes things don't adhere to that. Sometimes guys get up quicker or slower. Francisco Alvarez is going to start in AA Binghamton next year. He hasn't played at that level yet, so we'll see how things go there. I think he'll definitely make it to AAA. And, injuries happen, spots open up. Sometimes you just need a spark plug. Like Michael Conforto got the call in 2015 with not much minor league track record before that. So it's not impossible at all to see Francisco Alvarez make the jump.
It's tougher from a catching standpoint. This is, again, where what we're missing right now is he needs to throw. Max Scherzer needs to throw to him if he's going to. If he's going to be a part of the future. Jacob deGrom needs more time with him. He needs to be able to see, what Sugar Diaz is bringing. You know what I mean? It's just different, man. It's different. You got to have a comfort level with it. You got to be able to you don't want to be surprised with just the nastiest stuff in the world. And you don't want to see, Jacob deGrom out there with his glove going like this constantly and then rolling his eyes. Right. You want to get a rapport with a guy. And so those are the things we're missing. Those are the big hurdles of development. that we're missing, but he's 100% fully capable of showing up in Queens this year.
Yeah, it's crazy that there's no hyperbole when you say like the nastiest pitchers in the world, because that is what he's going to be batteried up with. But that just excites me. It really just does excite me. Like, he's going to be with the Mets for quite a long time. And I think the excitement is one side of, you want to make it to the big leagues. You want to prove that you can hang and you're worth the ranking. But also, yeah, you get to catch two world-class pitchers in DeGrom and Scherzer, plus Sugar Diaz, plus Cookie Carrasco. There's plenty of like crazy talented arms on this staff with fun things that they're going to throw.
Let's not get it twisted. Everyone at the big league level is world class.
Yeah, of course.
You have a chance to see Hall of Fame guys and catch them, in their prime. That's something that not many people can do. Guys go an entire career without seeing somebody on that level, and you're seeing, a handful of guys. It's an experience like no other that he shouldn't be taken for granted, but he's like a little kid with he doesn't understand what he's going through right now or what he's seeing. But his passion is there. His mindset is right. It's a great time to be a Mets fan as far as the catching situation goes.
And there, I know that this isn't entirely related, but there's just something about his build that I love. Like, I love like a stout catcher. Like, he's 5'11", 233, like thick guy.
He's a brick. He is solid. You're like, oh, that guy's a catcher. You see it?
Yeah.
And he's fun, man. I hope his personality, like, I'm excited for Mets fans to get to see him. He's got plenty of room to change. He's still young. But he is in a situation where we were in the alternate place where it's not the easiest to be happy and fun around, because it's miserable. A lot of it, especially the baseball stuff, it's really difficult. The dude is smiling all the time, like just happy, not blowing off his work like he could have done, and not just relying on him. I'm a top prospect here. Dude did his work, smiled, was fun to be around every day. It was fun, man. So that's exciting. Let's move on. I don't want to talk about it anymore.
We've been gushing for a while. But yeah, great Instagram follow, by the way, Francisco Alvarez. Dude's hilarious.
Oh, I don't look at Instagram anymore. I need to get back on it.
I got to be in tap with his social media now. We're personalities, Jerry. We got to be on the pulse.
That's true. Man, it's so hard. I love Twitter. Obviously, that's my wheelhouse, and then TikTok. I've been all over it.
Oh yeah, the Jerry TikToks have been great.
TikTok's fun.
Yeah.
And I just don't have time for Instagram.
He's a busy man. He's on TV. He's on TikTok. He doesn't have time for Instagram, all right?
And 2 little kids running around. It's crazy.
So there's plenty of Mets top prospects at the site right now. Another one of them is number 2, Brett Baty, who many people are excited about. Definitely another piece of the future, a Sandy Alderson draft gem, who's been kind of working out at not only third base, he's been getting some reps in left field. I think the Mets are trying to improve his versatility. The craziest thing that I saw is that, we get basically 4 different top prospect rankings in the top 100. On MLB Pipeline, the most popular one, Brett Baty is a very respectable number 45. On Baseball Prospectus, Baty has jumped all the way to number 13. So the Mets have 2 top 15 prospects, according to some baseball experts. And was Brett Baty a guy that you had any experiences with in spring training?
I don't remember. He didn't stand out to me. Like, was he in camp? Do you remember?
I believe he was, in 2020.
Okay, so I really don't remember. There's a lot going on.
You don't study all your teammates at the same time? Come on, man.
What's that?
You don't study all your teammates at the same time?
Well, yeah, I study everyone, but we have so many guys there. You got like 50, 60 guys. I'm trying to learn my new teammates that are in the big leagues. I'm trying to make a team.
Yeah.
You have all the above. I do know, I don't remember seeing him specifically. I do remember watching some of his like BP.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember our interactions, but I remember seeing his kind of like, he's just a polished hitter.
Yeah.
I don't remember him in the field, which is where, some of those question marks come for him. And I love to see that he's doing some outfield work, because at the very worst, you're just going to stay athletic and be more athletic, trying new things, and It's going to help you. But I remember watching him hit BP a little bit and just thinking about how poised he was. Kind of like when I saw Brandon Nimmo for the first time. It's a weird comp. But Nimmo, just in the box, you know that he has a plan and an idea of what he's trying to do. He just looks like a professional hitter. He's not up there swinging, trying to hit 600-foot home runs. He's up there doing work. It's awesome to see. I just remember seeing that going, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. He's comfortable.
Yeah. Baty was an extra base hit machine last year. He is a power hitter, don't get me wrong, but he's more known right now for his mechanics and his polished swing. A great gap hitter, great contact bat. The defense, is something that they're trying to improve on, I guess, with the versatility factor there. But he had a great 2021. He jumped a bunch of levels. He made the features game, moved up a prospect spot on the Mets list, was great in the Arizona Fall League. Shea Station, we were posting some highlights of him when he was doing his thing over there. So he's just been getting better and better, it seems. And this is really, I think, a proving time for him. He does have a little bit of competition there in Mark Vientos as well, because they're both playing third base and tearing the cover off the ball. But he seems like just a very laid-back, nonchalant dude, and I think he's very poised, and he kind of has a major league presence about him, and he gets me excited. He's going to start the year in AAA Syracuse, so we could very well see him soon, especially if any injuries or struggles come. The Mets obviously bulked up their depth a little bit with Eduardo Escobar and a couple of the guys that are going to be coming back from last year, but they're going to make room for Brett Baty when he's ready. I think that's almost a certainty.
Yeah, this is a big moment for him. This is a time where now you like when you're coming up and you're in the A-ball, you don't feel like you're right there in the big leagues. You know what I mean? You still feel like you're in the minor leagues or just coming up, just getting your feet wet in pro ball. This year he'll be in AAA starting the year. He'll be in big league camp if we have one.
Yep.
There will be eyes on him. This is where this is big time for him to either be a guy that can be in the big leagues now, or they're like, he's not ready yet.
Right.
Or there's a glaring defensive hole where they're like, we can't have that in the big leagues. We have too many guys. We don't have room for a DH. You're too young to not be playing the field. So this is a moment for him to really shine, as he has an ability to hit. And if it continues and the Mets need him, they will call him up.
Yep.
And this is like you said, this is a win now moment. These are big moments. Not everybody's going to have an amazing start to their year. At least it's statistically, unlikely that every one of these guys we're talking about is going to continue to just rake.
Yeah.
And so he has the ability, the polish to be a big factor in this year's, Mets lineup if we need it. But this is a big development year for him to show some versatility defensively and to continue to show that this is who he is. He rakes, he is a pro, and he knows how to hit. And that's exciting as well, man.
Yeah, definitely so. And we had talked a couple earlier pods ago about, the prospect of signing Chris Bryant, what that means for a guy like Brett Baty. But at the end of the day, with a talented prospect and a talented player who's major league ready, the Mets will find a spot for him. I don't think that'll be a prescient issue. I honestly want to turn the thing over to Ronnie Mauricio a little bit, because I know you had mentioned about, kind of a little bit of fascination you had with him. He is a big dude, like a athletic figure.
I love Ronnie Mauricio as a prospect. I really enjoyed what he brings to the table. I don't know why in my head when I was, he's been a name that I've known since I was around the team a few years ago,
right?
Because he came up at a young age. He's 20. Is he going to be 21 or is he 20 this year?
He's going to be 21 this year.
Yeah. So he's now, knocking on the door a little bit.
Yep.
But he was always in. It was like Ahmed Rosario was there. And then you had Andres Jimenez right behind him. And then a little bit later, he's a lot younger. Then you had Ronnie Mauricio. People were talking about him. And so I just assumed that he was this little guy with speed and great defense. And then I saw him last year in camp and I was blown away. He's wide. He's strong. He's solid. It says 6'3", 166. Mm-hmm. I would be surprised if he weighs 166 pounds. Because he's muscular, and if he is, it's probably because he's like 1% body fat. but I love how he works when he's at the plate. It's exciting. there's a lot of swing and miss right now. He's not as polished at the plate. He needs some experience. He's learning right now who he is as a player. And this is a big, important step for him to figure out what he wants to, does he want to be a swing and miss guy and hit, for 30 home runs, or does he want to be a speed guy, a triples doubles guy that steals bases and gets on? This is where we are, because he's capable of doing a little bit of it all. But I love the prospect. He's so fast, and not just like top end speed. He's quick. He's explosive. He brings a level of excitement to the plate that when you're like, that ball's in the gap, he's got 3. That's a single, a slow one. He might try to take second base here. It's exciting, man. He's fun to watch. I think I like him a lot more than people. I think they've brushed him off because they've heard him too much and he's not there yet.
Yep.
I wouldn't sleep on Ronnie Mauricio.
Yeah, I think he's definitely interesting because we've seen a lot of the top part of the Mets prospect list just tear up minor league ball. And I definitely agree that Ronnie Mauricio is still figuring out his talent a little bit. He has the tools. He's a tall, lean, muscular dude. I'm surprised when you said 166 because that did not seem right to me, but it's what it says on Baseball Reference. He's oozing with talent, and I feel like, he doesn't look like a prototypical shortstop by any means. And that's okay. Cause we got a guy on the Pirates, O'Neal Cruz, who's 6'5", this giant who plays a pretty decent shortstop. It's not impossible for your physicality to not get in the way there. I think that, he was finding himself in 2019, wasn't a big home run hitter, did a lot of other stuff, stole some bases, hit in the gap, got some extra base hits. Last year was a big year for him. He had 20 bombs between single A and double A there. But yeah, it's the plate discipline, and that's something that can be a craft that is honed throughout your time in the minor leagues. Still a young dude, not even 21 yet, but I think prospects get a little bit of an unfair shake there because they're expected to, sift through the minors if they're one of the highly ranked guys. And Ronnie Mauricio a year ago was the number 1 guy in the Mets system. He's since fallen to number 3. But yeah, I do kind of feel like people have fallen off him a little bit because of that minor league performance, but prospect rankings go so much deeper than just the stats that are on the paper when these guys get to different levels here. So I think that Ronnie Mauricio has a lot more to offer. I think that, he's one maybe with the most potential of any of these guys. It's just something that needs to be realized.
Yeah. It's development, man. Baseball's hard. It's not a pure skill level sport to where you're like, all right, I'm really fast and big and I just run through everybody as a running back.
Yeah.
I'm not just really tall and I can play basketball kind of stuff. Not that that's what they are. Obviously, the NBA and the NFL is different, but this is a different type of athleticism. You talked about him kind of being taller. I love it from a defensive standpoint. I don't know why. I just love a tall shortstop, the range possibilities, the smoothness. I think it's a plus. It gives him versatility. The Cal Ripken, Ahmed Rosario was taller and longer than a lot of people. His defense is still catching up, and I think he's got some work to do there. But I just love it, and I think he'll figure out. This is. I'm happy for him to get some time like this because this is when he can get one-on-one with some hitting coaches, with the organization, to be able to be like, all right, we think that you would be the best version of yourself doing this style of baseball. You have pop, you can hit for homers, or, you could be a contact guy. Then you can find a happy medium. I think this is a huge bonus for him to kind of be as an adult, not just, you're no longer a prospect. You're no longer let's let them develop and keep our hands off for the most part. Now you're like, all right, I'm on the precipice of being in the big leagues. How do I make myself ready to go? What do I need to do? And that's a mindset switch because a lot of guys it's so easy to just be like, oh, I'll get better. It's just reps. Now it's like, all right, you got to perform now. Now you have to put some stats up. Now you have to show that you're just doing it. You can't just rely on the fact that you're going to develop. And so this is a big point for him. I love him. I love what he could bring to the table. Obviously with Lindor there for the next 42 years, that's going to be a little bit difficult for him.
Number. Yeah.
But he can't worry about that. He has to just make himself the best that he can be. And whether it's at shortstop with the Mets, whether it's in center field or second base or third base, or as a piece to move, whatever the case may be, he has to show that he's ready to be in the big leagues now.
Yeah, I think, we mentioned before that this was a proving year for Brett Baty. It is even more so for Ronnie Mauricio. Not just considering the timetable, but also, like, Brett Baty has put up those monster numbers in the minors before, and I think we're all still itching to see that monster year from Ronnie Mauricio where things just start to click on all cylinders. But, just because Francisco Lindor is there for 84 years, Ronnie Mauricio is an athlete. He's a pure athlete. They've stretched him out. They've worked him out at other positions. And I know I've said it before, but it bears repeating. If a prospect is talented and they are ready for the show, they'll find a spot for them. There will be a room for them. So, if Ronnie Mauricio proves himself to be ready, it won't be long before we see him either. And I think that's why I'm so excited about what's going on with the Mets right now, like at these prospects at the camp. We're finally at the time where these guys are they're looking like they're ready either this year or at least next year. It's been kind of a wait for these guys. Ever since, the Jimenez and Rosario crop emerged to the major leagues, had their time and went away, it's kind of been a lull for a couple years of waiting to see young, exciting Mets prospects. And I've, being a diehard fan really for the 2010s, I've seen so many great Mets developed talent come through the pipeline here. And there's been kind of a 2-year lull. So I'm really, really excited to see these guys. And I think it's unique because, what's up?
I just want to make one comp here.
Go ahead. No, do it.
With Ronnie Mauricio. So if you, New York guys, especially the Yankees, you remember a guy named Jorge Mateo?
Yes, I do, actually.
So Jorge Mateo is I played with him in 2019 with the A's in AAA. One of the fastest human beings alive, legitimately so fast. But, I don't want to dog on a guy because he's still a big leaguer. He's still doing well, but he never lived up to the potential of who he could have been. And I'm not saying it's because expectations were too high and he just is who he is, or the fact that he didn't work hard. All I know is we're at the point in Ronnie Mauricio where we thought he could be the greatest. He still has that potential. He still has an all-star Hall of Fame level ability. Well, now we're trying to see who he is. I don't think it's out of this world to think that he could be amazing, or he could be Jorge Mateo and just never live up to it and just be a good guy and good ball player. Byron Buxton, he was a late bloomer. Everybody thought he was going to be an amazing prospect, right out of the gate.
He was number one forever. For I think a 3-year stretch, he was number one.
And I just feel now, I feel like Byron Buxton is better now, and he's different than the type of player he was. He still has to deal with some injuries and stuff, but it took him forever to figure out who he was as a player because he has all these tools. And so I think Ronnie Mauricio, no matter what happens this year, I still think he could be great. But this is a year for him to either say, I'm ready, you need to do something with me, for me right now, or you can sit me in the minor leagues for another year or two and I'll still be good and be ready in a year or two. So this is an exciting point for him. Yeah,
I really think I love those comparisons. And I think it's important to remind our listeners that prospect rankings are almost always not accurate. It's we're all just guessing a little bit. It's a little bit of guessing. Tyler McGill was the 28th ranked prospect, and then he came up. He made a splash for the Mets in his first 10 starts. Pete Alonso was as low as number 10 in 2017. Seth Lugo was not even on anybody's radar. The guy was a 40th round pick in the draft. And sometimes things just click for these guys. They figure something out. They hone their craft in a unique way that makes them less expendable than before. And a guy that's ranked number 3 could end up being a perennial all-star. And a guy that's ranked, as low as number 10 or even lower than that can make solid contributions at the major league level. It's so hard to judge prospects. I can't imagine being a scout.
It's like you said, it's guessing. We're speculating. That's what everybody does. Yep. It's development. We'll see. But these guys at the top here are so close to the big leagues that it's okay now to evaluate. Yeah. There's enough out there. There's enough there to be all right, it's time to show us your true colors. And so, Brett Baty's young still, but he's polished. Ronnie Mauricio's ready. Francisco Alvarez is a baby. But these guys are right on the precipice of of being a star in Queens. And so, we'll see.
Yeah. And I think it's so interesting that we are in a timeline where the Mets' top prospects aren't pitchers, because I feel like that's all we've ever known. Like the Steven Matz, Noah Syndergaard days, the Jacob deGrom days. Like it's always been that the Mets pipeline produces great pitching. But right now, it's an exciting crop of position players. And not to say that the Mets don't have great pitchers coming up in the pipeline now. We got two guys that are 4 and 5 here in Matt Allan and JT Ginn. Matt Allan has had a really tough time with certain things, though. He's had some injury troubles, had Tommy John surgery and ulnar transposition surgery in January. So he's been dealing with some stuff. He's going to start throwing again in March, but he's definitely missing some chunks of the season. But I thought it was really interesting because I read something that he directly shadowed Jacob deGrom in 2020 and basically was attached at the hip to deGrom. Hasn't been able to see him now, obviously, because of the lockout, but I thought that that pairing was really interesting.
Yeah, they stuck him in Jake's group for a reason, in spring training. I remember they're like, hey, this is a guy I want you to shadow a little bit. Nobody's attached to Jake's hip. He gets the respect of getting the distance, but just watching the way Jake works and seeing him go through his work it's beyond valuable. You can't put a value on it because it's just unheard of. And Matt Allan and JT Ginn as well. Both of those guys came in with eyes wide open and not like a deer in the headlights look, but more of let's soak this in. They got to see guys like Stroman, the way they go about their business. And they got to see Syndergaard, the way he goes about his business and rehab. And they got to watch, one of the greatest talents of a generation in Jacob deGrom, and Matt Allan got to be in that group and see him and show how Jake fields ground balls and works hard in that aspect, how he goes about his bullpen, just what it means and what it looks like to be a great big leaguer is, it's something that he'll never forget. At a moment in his career, whether he ends up being a Hall of Famer or not, he'll remember that forever because he got to be around that. And those are invaluable to a guy at that stage in his career. Expectations are high, but his expectations, as high as they aren't to be the greatest pitcher on the planet. So that's good. He's you know what I mean?
There's a baseline there. That's good.
Yeah, it's nice to be humbled, to be around greatness like that, to show, because at that age, they've never experienced anything but just being dominant.
Right.
And then to be around a guy like deGrom and watch him and go, holy, there's another level. It humbles you and it makes you work harder.
Yeah.
Because you're like, all right, I want to be like that, or I can't get to that, but I'm going to be the best version of myself. Or what does it take to get there? So that's what I love about it. Just to eyes opened to what it really means to be a great baseball player.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really important wisdom to take away, because I do agree. I feel like it must make you hungrier to know that there is another level of greatness to be achieved, especially after years and years of being, what is perceived to you as the top of your game. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to see Matt Allan pitch a whole lot in the minor leagues. He's been dealing with some injury troubles, but people are still very high on him, and I think that should tell you alone that Matt Allan has a lot to offer. The guy that we have been able to see a decent bit, especially last year with how much he improved, is JT Ginn. He pitched at Single A last year, was with the Cyclones for a little bit, had a 3.18 ERA over, I believe, 15 starts or so. So he has improved a whole lot. And I think that him and Matt Allan have been good buddies and kind of a pairing in of themselves, being the top Mets pitching guys on the prospect list here. He jumped up a spot last year in the prospect ranking. He's another guy that actually came off Tommy John surgery the year prior. So he finally got his first full year of reps in the minor leagues. A fastball, sinker, slider, curve combo guy, 97 miles per hour on the gun for that fastball. A lot to like from JT Ginn. I'm getting more and more high on him the more I learn about him.
Yeah, I like JT Ginn. I enjoyed him. I got to cut it up with him a little bit more than I did Matt Allan.
Yeah.
Fun kid, Mississippi boy. He was a first rounder out of high school and chose to go to Mississippi State. Love it, man. That's confidence. I couldn't do that at that age. And came out and was a second rounder. Was a great, big time prospect. Good head on his shoulders. Had a good year. I was impressed with what he did. To get to high A, in your first full season coming off of a missed year. It's pretty impressive. He made, let's see, 18 starts. So that's a good chunk of a season. 92 innings. So like, that's not so bad. You kind of know what you got, where you are, what things you need to work on like this. So those are the points to where you're a pro now. You know what you're doing. I don't really love, not that I don't love, I'm trying to figure a word. He fills up the zone. I was really impressed with his ability to spot up. His stuff can be electric. He throws a ton of strikes. I would like to see him strike out a few more guys. I don't think it's a necessary thing. I don't think he has to strike out guys to be successful, but I think his stuff is so good that he needs to go for a few more strikeouts here and there. But again, freaking A-ball. They swing at everything. You know, he might be a guy because he's so polished, like once he moves up to AA, that everybody is a little bit more polished of a hitter. He might just skyrocket and take off, because these are the times to develop. You know, A-ball, you're always worried about yourself. You get to AA and you start to focus on a battle a little bit between the hitter and learning how to take advantage of those guys a little bit, or what they're bringing to the table. Because in A-ball, you're always about development and how I look and what I'm doing. And then as you rise up in the ranks, it starts to become a little bit more about the game of baseball, the art of pitching. And so that's where we are. I'm excited to see him. Like I said, running up to 97 here. Gosh dang it. He reminds me of a player. I'm going to look up a roster. I can't think of who it is, but he reminded me, like, build wise and kind of personality wise, of a player.
I'm loving your player comps today, Jerry. You're like,
I know, I'm
honing
coming
your
with
inner
it.
scout. This is great. I love it. You're in the,
so it's hold on. I'll think of it in a second.
It.
I just need to see his name. I don't even know who I have in my head yet, but as soon as I see his name, I'm looking on.
I can see it on the tip of your tongue.
Yeah, hold on. Let me just make sure. Yeah, Tyler Bachelor.
There it is.
He's like a taller version of that kind of electric stuff. I think he's already more polished than Bash. I loved their personalities, kind of similar. Mm-hmm. Obviously, they aren't completely open to me as a veteran guy. When we're in the same group, they're a little bit more subdued and quiet, and I love that. It shows a little bit of respect.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly who he is. I'm not going to stamp him as this amazing kid. I don't know, but he was an awesome impression from what I've got. And I think he has a high ceiling. I think, as a top prospect, I think he can develop into a top end starter.
Yeah.
A number 3, number 2 guy. And there's no sense to eliminate him being a front end number 1 guy yet, because he can turn into anything. Development is amazing. The way you can develop pitching in today's game is wonderful. But his build, he's like a taller version of the strong, Bachelor style body.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think there's plenty of reason to be excited, and the Mets have a really good track record with this kind of thing, with pitching development. So JT Ginn is another guy definitely worth getting excited over. Not a guy that you'll probably see in the big leagues anytime soon. I think that he might start the year in high A or double A. It's not really certain yet. Probably got a couple more years in the minors to work on his stuff. But I definitely
plus he's coming. He had Tommy John surgery a couple years ago. Yeah. He's coming into a final workload. So he's not ready for the big leagues now, but he could, if there's a need at the end of the season out of the bullpen, that if you need an arm and he's dominating and you're trying to win, it could be a Wainwright situation where you just bring in a guy to throw out of the bullpen, man. You never know.
Well, if we're talking bullpen, I do want to turn it over to one guy that I learned about very, very recently. Not a high-ranked prospect in the Mets system at all, but one of the very few guys that actually could maybe make the opening day roster. This guy was a 5th-round pick in the 2020 draft, which is definitely a different shaped draft, much less rounds comparatively to other years. But last year, jumped up from high A to triple A in a single season, jumped up 3 levels there. 3.08 ERA in 49 innings. The guy's name is Eric Orze. I'm hoping I'm getting his name right there. A lot of mispronunciation on the pod today if we're incorrect there. But this is a guy that really, really excites me. And I love his story. He's a 2-time cancer survivor, has rebounded fully, regained his physicality, and has come back and has looked stronger than ever in some of the things that we've seen from last year and early on in camp. He's a fastball splitter guy, definitely a reliever, but his velo has ticked up with every year that he's continued to pitch healthily in the minor leagues. Currently tops out at 96. So he's a guy that if you're looking for prospects that might make an immediate impact once the season returns, I would definitely keep your eye on number 26 prospect here, Eric Orzi.
I just read about him, I think yesterday.
Yeah.
The cancer survivor stories. Saw him throw a little bit, polished, looks solid. He could eat, like the bullpen is such a wild card.
Yeah.
And he's not like a 20-year-old prospect. He's 24, he's born in 97. So he's turns 25 in August. So he's not like, I made my debut at 24. If he's ready and they have a need, he will be called up.
Yep.
Bullpen, they need guys, and the way they're going to go, they'll cycle through. So I haven't dove into him as specifically, but if he's ready, his numbers look great. He could be a guy for sure. So this is another point for a guy like that that's on the outside, not on the 40-man, not necessarily one of the top prospects, but a guy that can just wow the people that you need to wow, to where you put your name in that, all of a sudden he's here, and then you're looking at that. It's crazy in spring training. You can see it in the coach's office. They have like this big whiteboard, and then like starting pitching, and then there's depth, and then there's then your name's at the bottom. He probably had a name at the bottom, and he could easily put himself on that list, that short list. And so, I wish him nothing but the best, man. That story is wild. It's something pretty crazy that he's overcome a lot. And so baseball's probably just fun again.
Yeah, I bet. I'm just happy for him more than anything else. That's a crazy, crazy story to overcome. And I know I talked about it a little bit before, but that number 26 rank, it doesn't mean anything. Tyler McGill was number 28, and he got called up from Double-A to make his debut and did an incredible job. So, don't be surprised if you see him either. I know we've said that a couple times as well. But there's not a lot of guys on this Mets prospect list that might be ready for a potential opening day roster spot. So they're definitely the ones that I get most excited about, just thinking about how we get to see this new crop coming up now. Another one that I want to talk about who made it as high as Double-A last year is number 14 prospect, Jose Budo. I think it's Budo. I'm not sure.
I wouldn't say it's Buto.
Buto, okay. I went Budo first.
That would be my guess.
But maybe he got made fun of because his last name is Budo. You never know. It's kind of.
If he's Jose, you want to pronounce it with the Latin approach. Yeah. It's Buto.
All right, I like that. I'm learning a lot here, Jer.
I'm a well-rounded human.
Oh yeah, come on, you've been around the block, man. You met them all. Budo was a guy, starter in the minor leagues, had a great season last year, 3.83 ERA, 20 games started, 1.1 WHIP. He's another guy that has that potential to be major league ready right now. Tops out at 93 on his fastball. Some have said he has arguably the best changeup of any Mets pitcher in the system, so I thought that was pretty interesting there as well. Tyler McGill, another guy, was hyped up for his changeup. And he made a large leap. I think we've talked a little bit about the leaps in the prospect rankings. Nobody made a bigger jump than Jose Budo, who was number 28 in 2020, jumped all the way to number 14 in this last year. So he's another guy that possibly keep on your radar. He's unfortunately a guy that is not in camp right now because he's on the 40-man. But that just tells you that the Mets have him in mind to potentially make the call soon.
A guy with a changeup, a polished changeup at that age, I love seeing it. It's such a hard pitch to master, to have a feel for a changeup, especially in today's let's have a breaking ball and a high spin fastball. To come out and have a changeup, it just tells me right away that you have a love for the craft of pitching to develop that, and I'm for it. His numbers look fantastic.
Yeah, man.
In Double-A, 40 innings, only 33 hits given up. Not a lot of walks, good amount of strikeouts, so he can do it, man. I'm excited.
Yeah, man. So I mean, we could go on and on all day here because there's plenty of Mets prospects getting the spotlight at camp right now. But I think that these are the guys that you definitely want to keep in mind. Obviously, the top heavy, the top brass guys on the prospect list. And then the guys that could potentially make the major league jump very early in the 2022 season. There's a lot to be excited about on the Mets farm. Kind of an underrated farm system, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, from just looking at what we have here, it's very top heavy, because any farm system with these guys at the top are going to look top heavy because they're top prospects. Like you said, we have 2 top 15.
Yeah, according to Baseball Prospectus. That's crazy.
Yeah, and I think they're sleeping on a couple of guys, even in that build. But to have a Francisco Alvarez, you see everybody talks about him. It's not just a Mets thing, because he's exciting. And so it's a slept on a little bit farm system. So. Yeah.
I mean, hopefully we'll get to see our actual Mets active roster players collaborate and work with these guys a little bit in the near future. But for the time being, this is all we can do. We can do
as good as these guys are. I would rather talk about a big league club 100 times out of 100. I love this. I love the development, but I want to see the best of the best out there. And that is, these guys aren't there yet. I would rather see Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer. For sure.
The lone Max Scherzer highlights we've gotten are him fist bumping Francisco Lindor and then eating a bag of Cool Ranch Doritos.
Oh, he's a Cool Ranch guy.
I'm not really a Cool Ranch guy. I don't love Cool Ranch. I'm like,
what's your? I'm gonna judge you. So, what are your snacks? If you have a bag of chips, what's your chip?
I love a barbecue chip. I'm like a barbecue Lay's kind of guy.
What's like a brand that you like?
Lay's I go in and out because they go thin on me, and then sometimes they short the bag a little bit. I like a Dorito. I wasn't like crazy about Doritos. I think my big take here is that I'm a big Fritos guy. Like something about Fritos just clicks in my brain. So I've always been a Fritos guy. Regular Fritos. I know they do like the nacho or like the chili or something like that.
Chili cheese.
Yeah.
Yeah. The barbecue Fritos are solid.
So good. So good.
Good.
And like sour cream and onion. I kind of mess around with that a little bit. Like
I'll mix that in myself.
I need a thick chip.
I'm a chip guy all the way. I fluctuate, man.
Yeah.
The regular Doritos are always easy. The nacho cheese ones.
Yeah.
I'm a kettle chip kick right now. There's a brand out there. I'm normally like a jalapeno kettle chip.
I love jalapeno kettle, yeah.
There is a Cuban sandwich kettle chip that's got like the dill, the pickle flavor, the little bit of, you've got the pork. Like, I don't know, but it's fantastic. It's wonderful. There's
actually a Cuban place right by the office, and I'm going to get lunch today, so I think you kind of you turned me on there.
Cubano? Oh my gosh.
Cuban sandwich.
Get a cortadito too, a little coffee, and you can run all the way home.
It's going to be great. I'm excited for it. And now I'm thinking about it, so now I'm hungry, and I'm thrown for a loop.
It's almost lunchtime. You can grab a meal.
Yeah, I think you go around 11:30, you get an excuse, you'll be all right. People will probably give you like a side eye, like really.
Oh, you're just beating the rush.
Yeah, that's all I'm doing. I'm being proactive at the very least. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. If you didn't know about the Mets prospects already, definitely go check it out on Twitter. They're posting photos of them every day in uni and camp. It's a lot of fun. A lot of just, stuff that you'd be expecting right now from spring training. Some BP, guys throwing very lightly. Just random stuff to get excited about. Get baseball.
It's not what you want, but it's what we got.
Yeah.
So there's that.
It's better than nothing. And hopefully, this will be a fun pod to look back on when all the players report
by the time we record next episode, we'll be a much happier place.
I hope that. I hope so, man.
Me too.